welcome everyone to episode 5. Alright, hang on. I don't know, this is going terribly. Please like and subscribe. Alright, welcome everybody to episode 5 of the Problem Solver podcast. Today, all three of us are here. Myself, James, Alan, and Chloe.
Hello.
And so I guess we're gonna just go. The topic for today is gonna be dropping a toxic friend from your life. This has been a heavily requested topic by, everybody, all of our viewers and fans, and and our friends. And so we're gonna go around and just, I guess, get initial kind of thoughts on like dropping a toxic friend from your life if you've had an experience with something like that. Who wants to start?
I guess I'll start.
All right.
So I feel like, this is a common thing you see in like movies or books, whatever. The friend that's like super toxic, always putting you down, and it always makes sense to drop that person, But there's always this history you have with them, so it's not as simple as just like, oh, just get rid of them, because this person, maybe they weren't always toxic. So, like, the way that you interacted with them initially, maybe they actually really were good friends, and that's still how you see them. So, just to say dropping them is like, like, just forget all of the good parts that you actually do see in this person. So, I don't know. I think it's like a really hard decision to make. What do you guys think?
I mean, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
I've had an experience where I actually ended up dropping a friend. I considered her one of my best friends. And we knew each other for at least half a decade. And then, no, more than I think. Yeah, because high school and then college. But ultimately, as Alan said, she slowly became more and more toxic as time went on. And inevitably it was hard, but I was probably wasn't the only person that wanted her out of my life, funnily enough, but it was hard to make because she was relatively close.
Mm-hmm.
So how did you go about the dropping?
So at least for me, it was the problem was I think she was the type that really didn't like it felt like she really didn't care about how my other friends and I really felt. It was just like she kind of came in when it was convenient for her. So that type of person is actually pretty easy to drop, because all you have to do is stop talking with them, and then sometimes it wouldn't happen. I think inevitably after a year of really not talking, because she I, for whatever reason, just wanted to get back. We started a conversation, and it was about visiting a pet, and I was telling her, hey, I don't really feel comfortable with this, and I had to really politely just tell her, I don't really want to be your friend anymore. And it took a lot of conversation, and it felt kind of like a court case. It's like, Exhibit A, you were trash this way. Exhibit
Wow.
B, you were trash here too. But I really tried to make it so I tried to make it pretty tame. I wasn't outright being like, you're a bitch and all that stuff. I was just trying to say, hey, this and that. And inevitably, I think towards the end, she and I decided that to just kind of stay apart, and if we really direly need each other, we'll be there for each other. But we knew that was just kind of like a nice close for saying goodbye until whatever. But yeah.
So it sounds.
So you did drop your friend.
I definitely did. It was just towards the end, it's it was very wishy-washy in a way. I kind of did it. There was no dramatic fight. It was just, I just slowly let her down. I just slowly just stopped talking to her. It was so curious because I'm sure that the friend that you may want to drop it's kind of interconnected within a certain friend group, or they have a lot of attachments with her. Other people dropped her before I did, right? I was like one of the last people to do so. And so it was really easy for me, I think. But inevitably, once again, a 5 to 7, 8 long friendship is always hard to get rid of.
Absolutely. That's actually something I never thought of, because this sounds silly, but when you were saying, Alan, that the history that you have with the person can matter and things like that, and I guess I never looked at it exactly like that. I always just thought of it as not like, I guess unless I owed them something, like they like saved my life or something like along those lines, or they've always been a really good friend, and then up until a certain point they like started being really shitty, and kind of like what both of you were saying, like it could happen really slowly, you don't even really see it coming, until all of a sudden you're like, why am I still hanging out with this person? They just keep on bringing me down, or what, for whatever reason. So yeah, I've never thought about it in terms of like the history, though. I don't know. It's interesting. But
you mean like if so, like, have you dropped anyone?
Yeah.
Like
I'm like,
okay.
Generally, this is gonna sound weird, but like when I'm thinking about like, man, this friend is being a like total asshole or whatever, it kind of depends. Most of the time, I don't want like to drop the friend. It's normally like if it's an incident or something like that, like something we have an argument, disagreement. Obviously, I don't want to lose a friend. That's like a terrible feeling. But if I feel like the person has been being like getting worse and worse, and for reasons that I'm almost always willing to confront the person about it. And every situation I've had, I'm saying like, hey, look, I think you're being kind of like, difficult as a friend. And I'm not trying to. I try not to put the blame onto them. I'm just saying. I don't know exactly how I would try and say it. It depends on the situation, I guess. But I always just try and be honest and say, like, it's, like you're bringing me down when I'm with you, whatever is going on. And so in terms of being honest and upfront, I'm pretty good at that. Or I don't know if I'm good at it, but I do it regardless if I'm good at it or not. And in my experience, that has made situations maybe not worse, but it accelerates the problem. It never makes the problem better. You would think that, like, I'm like, what, I got to get this out in the open air. You've been annoying me lately, or whatever, or like you keep on saying this joke that really bothers me, or something like that. And then every single time that's happened, it's always been like the person tends to get pretty defensive. Maybe I am saying it now that I think about it in more of an accusatory way in general. So that could be the problem there. But I always just feel like that's the better way to go about it. It tends to accelerate the problem from what I learned. But that might be the problem might have come to a head eventually anyway. So I don't know. Though,
yeah, I think you were correct. Like the thing is, no one.
Yeah,
wants to,
I am right.
no
I don't
one
need
wants
those friends. Yeah. All right.
Well,
no one. Okay.
Maybe we need to drop James. He's pretty. Sounds
Oh yeah. Hey James,
to.
we need to talk to you. But seriously, like telling the truth really early on, because maybe it was how things were framed. I don't know the context of the situation, but just being upfront is generally good, because you want to have as little what is this like little misunderstandings as you can. Like you want the problem in its purest state when it just came out, and then
that's really
things happen. Yeah.
So you're saying like because if you wait a long time, then it's like people are gonna have time to like kind of warp the story to their favor. Or something
Not even just that. It's just like things could add because of that. Like let's say for example, you and I placed a bet on something and you won, but then I refused to pay you the money because I refused to like do that. Like that could be the start, right?
Okay.
But then now in your head, you know me as someone that's distrustful, and I just have a vendetta against you because you won. And then slowly our interactions from then on are pretty sullied. So by the time this actual confrontation like comes up, we're going to like have many different like
Wow.
reasons as to why we have a problem. It'll just be like a tree, and then it'll branch out.
That is
to, like,
deeply
so many
profound,
different
Chloe.
things.
Wait, sorry. Are you saying to be upfront, like, as you drop this person, so that like things afterwards don't
I
like
think-
grow into like more of a problem? Or are you saying like to be upfront, like, so that it doesn't reach the point where this friend is like so incredibly toxic that you want to drop them? Like, are you saying be proactive or like? Yeah, what are you saying?
I think it's definitely the latter, because like as soon as you start noticing something, maybe just outright tell them. Like in a sense, this might even be preventative. Maybe your friend won't be so toxic if you talk things out. Because I definitely regret that. Like I don't blame myself for this person being toxic, but you know, if I talked to them a little bit more, it might have possibly gotten better. But in reality, I don't think so.
Yeah, maybe you could have saved the friendship.
Yeah, maybe I could have prevented it. Like, it's always like that. Like, relationships or friendships in any way, shape, or form, it's always one small thing that just snowballs into something, like, incredibly awful. And it's ruined forever. It always just starts as something small that's never been taken care of.
That's really interesting. So, and I really do think that you're striking something deeper, because my favorite author of all time, Malcolm Gladwell, he has talked about marriage in a similar way. He said most people would think that couples that fight less often would have a better marriage, but it turns out that couples that have fights or arguments more often about smaller things actually tend to have a lot better marriages, because they'll talk about little problems before they become big problems. So basically, they'll have more.
That is.
Yeah, they'll have more arguments, but they're less big. They're not as big arguments. So
that's absolutely correct. If you see, like, if you run into a couple that you just know and they just face check each other, like, right away out in the open, they have a fairly healthy relationship. Not if they do it frequently, like, as in, like, in every single interaction they have, they just hate each other. But in moments where it's just like, did you just do this? And then they're like, well, I'm sorry. And then they would, like, go on. Whatever. Like, it's actually not as bad as it looks, you know?
Yeah.
Fights don't necessarily mean a bad thing. It's just a confrontational thing. But more focused on, like,
There will always be problems. So if you see no evidence of it, that's a problem.
It is a problem. There's probably a way bigger one. This also can lead into, like, people's like friendships, you know, if they've been friends for like 5+ years and they were able to kind of hold on, like they're really good friends for like 5+ years and there's been no problems between them, that I smell a farce. It's like, I don't know, like what exactly your relationship is. Maybe you guys were just like online friend buddies that would just play a game, and that makes sense. But if you're like in person, constantly seeing each other throughout the day and you have absolutely no problems with each other, that's concerning in a sense.
Yeah, that is weird, right?
Yeah.
That's totally true, because it's like every friend, I'm sure you guys could probably relate, like probably every best friend you've ever had, you've had some argument with or rough patch with at some point. Because I would say that's true for me.
It's like just to cater it more towards a certain case. Is there, like, you know, Alan, is there any details you would like to share? You know, you don't have to, because, you know, what if they watch this video or something?
Alan, why am I a toxic friend to you?
No, wait, we're not getting into
you gotta let it out in the open, man.
Wait, what were you asking? Sorry, I
Yeah.
I just like kind of spaced out for a bit.
Why do you want to drop this friend? Like, we want to make it like specific.
How do you know this is my problem?
Oh, that's true.
Wait, let me go.
Okay.
Let me go on the Google Drive and see who typed that. Hang on a second.
Well, these are problems sourced from our friends.
Oh, yeah.
But yes.
No, I know. I was kidding. I thought you meant, like, how did you know it was your problem that you added to the list? I didn't mean your problem specifically.
No, I meant it like that.
Yeah, no. Chloe just asking,
Sorry.
do you have anything you, like, in your experience? It doesn't have to be. If you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to.
Well, there is a person I'm thinking of, but I have not dropped them yet. I don't know, just generally being with them doesn't bring me joy anymore. You know, like, this is a person that I feel like I do really try with. Like, I don't want to drop them. I think it's especially because, like, what I mentioned before about having history with them. Like, I did think we were very close at some point, but then there was just a point in our relationship where they sort of kept being toxic, and I never confronted them about it, so that's kind of on me also, but they sort of kept being a downer and like not saying the right thing and like putting me down sometimes and like never really addressed that. I guess because they thought it was fine, but like at some point it was kind of obvious that I wasn't fine anymore,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
So it just reached a point where it's like, why am I, like, I would see them and I'm just like, why am I here? Why did I bother come seeing this person?
And how long have you felt this way towards them?
So I've known them for about 5-ish years now, I'd say.
Mhm.
And I felt this way I felt strongly this way for the last year, I'll say.
Okay, and how did you feel mildly? Like, how long did you mildly feel, hey, this person, they're still my friend, but they're kind of a downer sometimes. Like, how long have you felt that? Like,
Probably like the year or like the half year before that year. So it was
Okay.
like a gradual, just like mild to like,
it was exponential. Oh no.
Oh, I
That
didn't mean to
sucks.
draw exponential graph. I just meant to
Oh,
show
no,
like
but-
it was increasing.
No. It's still really valid because it's just like
Maybe
usually
maybe
with people, it's-
logarithmic or plateauing.
some people usually it's very slow, right? Like over time, maybe over, like I guess we're framing it in a sense of a year or so. Like
Yeah.
for people, like sometimes it might be slower, or depending on the frame of reference that they have, it might be just about the same. But the fact is, like, you slowly and quickly, like slowly at first and then quickly realize that this person is not doing too great.
Yeah.
How interconnected is this person with your friends? Like, are they like, they don't have to be a central person in your friend group, but it's like, do they have other friends that you're commonly friends with, where it's like, you guys have a group with each other?
Pretty much everyone knows them, but they're not really someone that hangs out, you know?
I see.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't say there's like one person that's like probably very close, but that's like that's it. Everyone else is kind of on the same page as I am. Or like
I see.
most the people that I talk to the most are like on the same page as I am.
That's like that. Yeah, it's actually pretty interesting because I feel like I was in a similar position as you were before. Like there were friends that were like at the time like her college friends that I also find that I'm also friends with were a bit bolder, and they were just like haha goodbye. But
Yeah, I feel like
this.
I'm going to be the last person to drop this person
Wow,
like you.
these are super similar
yeah.
situations between you two.
Yeah. Once again, if this person isn't the type to like hang out, you could just drop them slowly. Like a lot of people tend to, and I personally always tend to go with a very forward approach of like, headstrong and telling them like, you need to get out right now, get out of my house, like, and all that.
Wow.
But yeah, but in actuality, like sometimes if this person's kind of like drifting apart, maybe it's best to drop them slowly. Maybe just don't talk to them for a while. But also
I
like
wonder if I'm like already at that point.
you might be, yeah. Like it really just after a while, maybe they might hit you up, and then you have to actively decide if you want to chill with them again. And you could ignore it. You could say no.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to say no so that your intentions are clear. But
I am busy forever. I do not have time
Yeah.
to hang out with you.
At least I think being clear with your intentions is important, though. It
No.
might hurt them.
Just hide the
No.
problem. That's always the
No.
solution. No,
See,
I totally
this is
agree.
how
I totally agree, though. Yeah. And that's actually happened to me, kind of on the reverse side, where one of my best friends from like middle school, and through high school, and most of college, like we just haven't talked in a while, and so like I was trying to reach out to him not too long ago, and just say, hey, what's up? Like, hey man, what's going on? Blah blah. Like just trying to reconnect, and he was like giving me a hard time about it because we hadn't talked in probably like a year, and neither of us have been too busy to talk. It's just like we just hadn't seen each other, had been busy enough where it was difficult to schedule any time to hang out.
That's annoying that he gave you a hard time.
Yeah, I know. So, and then I felt like the asshole.
Even after a year.
What do you say?
Oh, I'm sorry. After a year, and you guys knew each other for like more than a decade.
Yeah,
He gave you a
exactly.
hard time for not talking.
He wasn't giving me a
Yeah.
hard time to the point where it was like he was like, I don't want to talk to you. Just not being as responsive as I would have hoped, because I was like, just reaching out for the sake of reaching out. Um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so he gave me a little bit of a hard time. Wasn't really talking too much, and I mean I know him pretty well. Like I was half expecting that. But then what annoys me so much is a few weeks ago, that whole friend group from like my basically a middle school friend group was able to hang out, and I actually couldn't go, and like he would have been there, and like
Mhm.
a bunch of other friends I hadn't seen in a while. So it was frustrating that, like, because I feel like I'm trying to legitimately save hold on to this friendship, because I value all these people, and I think they're all like good people, and I hope they think the same about me. Um,
Mhm.
but so I guess I don't want to be the friend that comes off as toxic, so it's kind of like the reverse side of it. Like
Oh
somebody
yeah,
somebody
definitely.
slowly just trying to drop me because I'm always a downer or something like that. I don't know.
I don't
How
think
do you
they
prevent
work.
yourself from getting dropped?
Oh, that's a pretty good
You
one.
loan them a lot of
Switcheroo.
money,
Um,
and then they always owe you something.
Yeah.
That's how you do
I
it.
Sorry, what were
think
you gonna say? Ooh.
Oh, sorry. I think the cheapest way to do that, apart from like showering them with gifts, I
Yeah.
think. No, but really, it's constant communication,
Hmm.
and it's always hard to go up to person and find out like their true intentions with you. They're like, why do they bother being friends with you? Is it more than just history? Um, is it like a bunch of like other things like that? Like that's always difficult. Um,
Wow, yeah, it's something I've
I've
never
been
thought to ask my friends. Why are you friends? Why do you like me? You're weird. Why would you like? Why would you want
It's
to be
funny
friends
because
with me?
I always have like a group of friends from like I mean that goes for everyone. We always have a group of friends that's like from every point of our like school year or for work. More with school for me just because like I longer you spend a lot more time in school with your friends than your work friends. Um, but like I'm very close to my high school group of friends. And it's funnily enough, we do ask this question all the time. It's like, why are you even friends with me? Like either half jokingly or completely serious. And it's fun to just get reminders of it.
Yeah.
But how they tell the story, and how they kind of like, um, how they say it and how quickly they say it, it's always a good indicator of how long you've been friends. In the beginning, it's always just going to be like, oh, like we met here, here, and here. It's always very thoughtful, and towards the end, it's like it's because you were. It's because you wouldn't like leave me or some shit, and then it'll always degrade, but it'll just be funnier the closer you are. That's what I noticed
It'll
so
so
far
you
with
so
them.
you say, like, the better of friends that you are with a person, like almost like the funnier and like more
Hmm.
like ribbing there will be when you're talking about being friends, or like how you
Yeah.
became friends, something like that. I would definitely agree with, like,
Hmm.
that's been true with me. Yeah.
Hmm. And then you just have to be careful because sometimes the ribbing might touch a nerve, and then you have to be honest with that.
See,
You know.
that's something I always okay. That's actually a topic that I is very difficult, I think, to balance in a lot of ways. Like, I've been
Yeah.
accused personally of being like too sensitive or taking things too personally, like jokes and things like that. Um, but like, I mean, there's got to be a point where you're like, all right, this isn't funny anymore. You're just straight up making fun of me, or you're just
Yeah.
straight up being mean. And I mean,
Hmm.
everybody's different. But then, like, you see friend groups of people that all they do is shit on each other, and it's like they'll
Yeah.
say like the meanest shit to somebody, and everybody laughs and everybody thinks it's funny. And I don't know if it's just I'm just not wired exactly like that, you know. But I think I've
It's
definitely
yeah.
mistaken things that were not meant to be ill will jokes or whatever. They weren't meant to be mean. Somebody was just legitimately trying to be funny, and so like that could be easily mistaken for somebody that's increasingly being a bad friend.
Yeah, I don't think like everyone has a different type of friend group. I personally enjoy the friend group that always shits on each other.
Hmm.
Like I definitely have a close knit friend group where I just go up like I would literally I could they're on Discord right now. I could just go on the server that we have and just call them all something
Yeah.
and then leave and then it'll be fine. But like it's what I notice is it's definitely the connection you have with this person. You have to always think to yourself, back to that question, why am I friends with this person? Like, what is the whole reason we decided to become friends, and why do we persist in this friendship? You can drop people for non-toxic reasons, and they could drop you for non-toxic reasons too. It would just be inconvenient, you know. It's like you're an old friend. Maybe they'll hang up with you, hang with you later. No hard feelings, right? But it's just so complicated because you never know. Like, people change. You don't know how much they've changed, and there's so many factors into it that it's hard to create like a good like analysis as to like why
Yeah.
this particular friendship survived the way it did or why it didn't. But at least just talking about it in a qualitative matter, you know, it's usually just like what I think. This may or may not be true. Is how honest you are with them and how thoughtful you are to them, because people always like it when you give them things, of course, right? So it could be as small as, hey, happy birthday, or hey, congrats on getting your new job. Just doing that to them very frequently. You might not have as many conversations as you'd like, but it shows that you think about them. Um, and that's enough sometimes, you know. Like, I'm pretty
No, that
bad
is a
at
good
going
point.
up to people and like,
Yeah.
I just sent the automated Facebook message.
There's
oh my god, yeah, just program that in.
I didn't even know
Happy
Facebook has that.
birthday.
I have LinkedIn does that. It's terrible. It has like 3
Yeah,
prompts.
really?
It's like, congratulations, great job, good work, you know. And it's just like, you literally never have to type a message in your life. It's
Sent from my iPhone.
Yeah. Oh god,
Yeah.
all those professor emails.
Actually, on a related note, Chloe, because you were saying because you might drop friends with,
Mhm.
kind of for not necessarily toxic. You said not toxic reasons. I had my story
Yeah.
of dropping a friend. It was kind of for that, in a similar way. Like, so basically, as soon as I went to college, I was freshman. I had, you know, the whole world in my hands. Every door was open. Limits were endless. No, there were no limits. I mean, and so one of my friends from high school also went to the same college, and so we had been basically, we were pretty good friends in high school, and then we started talking a lot more in college. I don't think we had any classes together, but it's just because we knew each other. You know, we were both like in a new environment together. So I think we kind of relied on each other as a crutch in a sense. You know, where we were like, oh, if I'm always hanging out with you, then I don't need to worry about making new friends. You know, it's like I already have a friend, right?
Yeah.
I didn't have to like be so adventurous socially because I already had,
Mhm.
you know, this person as friend, so whatever. And
Wow, relatable.
Introvert problems, am I right? No.
yeah, and so I kind of knew that, like, and this is the point of contention that I think really kind of drove us apart, was I was always trying to hang out with new people, and like, you know, whether grab lunch with them, and I would say, hey, why don't you grab lunch with me and my friend, or whatever, and something like that. And my friend from high school, who shall remain unnamed, um,
Mhm.
was always giving me a hard time about it. It was so frustrating. Like, he didn't want to meet new people, and I couldn't wrap my head around that. I was like, there's literally thousands of new people that we could meet, and you're saying none of them are worth your time. You know, and
Hmm.
that frustrated me so much. So, uh, eventually something happened. Like, he got kind of dramatic, and like he actually started. I don't remember. Now it was, you know, obviously probably like a few years ago at this point, but um, something small happened and it got blown out of proportion. And then he like sent me a text
Mhm.
to really
It always is.
exactly, because well, that was the thing, because
Yeah.
obviously I was frustrated with, I didn't clearly communicate that. You know what I mean? I didn't clearly communicate like you're you know, impeding my social life essentially. So it made more sense to drop one friend than and to have and to try and meet new people, right? Like, at least it worked out in my head that way. And so he ended up, some small thing happened. He sent me like this really dramatic text, basically saying like, you know, you're not a good friend. And then I was like, I have never tried to not be a good friend, but like, we, you know, whatever, we just can't hang out anymore. And then um, and then he blocked me and then unfriended me on Facebook. Um,
Wow,
after I was
that's
just
official.
yeah, and then after I was just trying to like what I felt like was just stand up for myself and just say, you know, I don't want to like just hang out with you. But now that I think about that, yeah, definitely, I'm definitely messing up the details, but something like that, basically. So,
Uh,
uh,
yeah, no, like,
but so here's the weird thing, though. This is the weird part. A few weeks, months, or whatever, years later, I don't remember. He unblocked me from Facebook and sent me a message, and he was like, "Hey, blah blah, how's it going?" And I couldn't believe that I was like, "We just went through this whole dramatic thing. Like, isn't it over? Isn't it dead?" And then so then
I think he just had a moment. He probably had a
I don't know.
moment.
So then I was like gonna message him back, and then I was like, but I was like, nah. So then I unblocked him. So then I blocked him. Yeah. And I was like, I don't want it. Like, I couldn't deal with that again. I was like, if this is just gonna be a cyclical thing, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need like that's way too much messiness to deal with. And that's kind of like that was my first real experience with like dropping a friend. Because I guess I did see a chance where I could have saved it, or at least tried to work it out, but it was so not worth it. Like they did not add much to the my social life, and maybe I didn't add much to their social life either. So,
And
oh wait,
think,
sorry, one last thing,
yeah.
and then I'm done talking forever. Around the same time, I saw a quote from Eminem. Okay, this was this touched me really like right in the soul, and this quote was, "Do you have any enemies? Question mark. Good. That means that you stood up for something in your life." And I was like, yeah, I do have an enemy now.
Good.
Like I stood up for myself. So yeah, it made me feel like very justified in what I did.
Also, sorry that I laughed in the middle of your story. I feel like that maybe wasn't appropriate.
No. Alan,
I laughed a lot in that story.
You would not be a true friend, Alan, if you didn't laugh. Which makes me suspicious, Chloe. Why weren't you laughing at my pain? Anyway.
Oh,
I just thought it was poetic that you also blocked him.
That was a great move.
I had to, because I knew, like... Alright, one last quick aside. So, obviously, before the big fallout happened, like, the same thing had played out on a much smaller scale, where, like, we had, like, a little argument, and then everything was fine, and then we had a little argument, and then everything was fine. And every time, he would just get kind of overly dramatic about it. And so, when we finally had the big argument, I was like, I can't have this happen, like, on a freaking monthly basis. So that's when I was just like, I'm just gonna cut the ties.
From his perspective, because I've definitely seen this before, been on both sides of this confrontation.
Wait,
I think that's probably. Wait, what?
Like a similar situation where like.
Yeah,
like
I've been in a
friendship.
similar situation. Yeah, like, or just being in a relationship is like that all the time. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just like what I really think would happen was this dude just had a lot of unresolved like feelings with you, like he or them, whatever. Oh, not like that. Wait, maybe, who knows? But this person, like their true intentions were never revealed, and every single confrontation, it was either difficult for them to say it, or you said something that didn't want to make them like reveal it. But all I know is that it's neither of your faults really, or it could have been both. Like I don't know the details of it.
I honestly, I would share them. I honestly have forgotten a lot of them. Yeah, it's been.
Oh, that's fair
like
enough.
5 or 6 years now.
Yeah. Honestly, I also don't blame you for just to jump forward. I don't really blame you for like not dealing with that, because that's too much, and it's on like know.
My social life.
You have to watch out for yourself.
My social life in college was great after I didn't have to worry about that guy anymore. Like I obviously became friends with you two, which was like I guess okay, and then I became friends with everybody else. I was trying to pull the joke on you. You got it back on me. I see how it is. Anyway, yeah. So like my social life was great after I didn't have to worry about that anymore. So it ended up being a really large net gain. So
yeah. So yeah, you did.
But that is really interesting though. That I could be totally unaware of why he was being, like or acting the way that he was, and kind of like there's probably something I really don't know about, like,
like it like as we mentioned before, I think it snowballed because
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
the less clear it was as more interactions happened, it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Fights break out, and then all of a sudden you didn't know anything, but he had a pressure cooker full of like emotions
Yeah,
just going on
that's
for
exactly what
every
it was.
single time.
It was like it felt like
Yeah.
once a month. Because now, as you talk about it, I just like some more memories come back. At like probably once a month, it was just like I felt like I got blindsided by something. Like he would send me a text or call me or whatever, see me in person, and be like, "I can't believe you did this." You know what I mean? And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I like did one stupid thing, you know? Like, and now you're acting like I'm the worst person in the world." Um, you know, or like, yeah. And it generally was something social. You know, like I was trying to
Right.
hang out with somebody other than him. You know, or I was hanging out with another group of people, and not with him and other people that he knew. So, like that type of situation, you know.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, man, like you don't own me. Like I can hang out with whoever. So
Yeah, it sounded like he had a really big problem with just you having other friends, which is very possessive and
yeah,
strange.
yeah. I
And
think
there
that.
might be more to it, of course.
Nope, that's it. He's a
Yeah.
one-note villain. We're just gonna simplify his entire life down into that bottle, and that's how I'm gonna remember the story forever now.
Yeah. Maybe one day, but at the same time, you dropped him and you're living better for it, so you
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't really feel. Yeah.
Well,
But yeah.
quick thing then, Chloe. So after you had that kind of conversation with your friend that you dropped, do you feel like your life has been, or social life or whatever, any part of your life has been better or worse or the same?
Definitely better.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
with that, like I'm sorry I answered that so quickly.
No,
but,
that's means it's
she.
you made the right decision, I guess.
There is a lot that I don't really want to go over just because it's like it'll either take forever or it'll directly involve giving key details out. But since then I've gained because I hung out with this person, a lot of other people didn't want to hang out, not with with us, not necessarily with me. They're still friends with me, but they didn't want to hang out with the collective us because they just couldn't mentally and physically handle that person. And there are other people that she's wronged supremely in a sense. That they had nothing wrong with her, but I would like to be friends with them. But we couldn't because in a sense they the relationship and the connections were just really complicated. But since then I've been able to reconnect with all those people. It was
that's
crazy.
awesome.
It's it was the most insane thing because it's before I
You
really
had
wouldn't
a
hang
friend
out with
group
any of them.
that was
Yeah.
only held together by your collective dislike of the friend that you all dropped.
Yeah, I thought it was no, I thought it was the opposite. I thought it was it was a friend group that would barely meet. It's okay, we're just high school friends. I thought it was just reasons. It's no, it's because of her. And as soon as I got rid of her, we all were super close. I
Wow.
literally gained back nearly all of the people I wanted to talk to, and it was nuts. It was just okay, this is a ridiculous problem that I didn't think would be solved just by doing that.
Yeah.
It took a year, of course,
Wow.
to get back with everyone, but it was still really good. And in addition to that, also psychologically for me, this person kind of affected me in more ways than one. She would always put down any new health or diet things I would try out. She would say, "Oh, that's wrong. Why are you doing that? You're
Yeah,
ridiculous."
they're not supportive in any way.
They are not, yeah. And I really trusted her when it came to career advice, especially because we were both back in high school we were the only people who were pretty serious into getting into STEM. We would have a passion for it, and I wrongly went into a career of research because she told me that's the only way, and it was just so unsupportive. My really good friend, my best friend even before her, we were all in a friend group, and her major wasn't a STEM major, and she constantly would never acknowledge it or give it any shine of importance. It was just pretty disgusting. That was one of the reasons why I really wanted to get out of that, because there was very little respect for anyone around.
That's just I think a lot of people don't realize. I've definitely been on that side of the situation where I'm the asshole, I'm the guy saying "Oh, what, you're gonna major in communications? That's dumb." But that's just because I don't have an appreciation for that stuff. Now I do a little bit more, or I mean, I think I appreciate it much more. But I would put it down because at the time I was like, I didn't think it was anything useful, and then since then I've learned things about it and realized like, oh no, like this could be a legitimate thing that somebody's legitimately interested in, just like somebody could be legitimately interested in a STEM field, Um,
Yeah.
and so, and I think it was a way because I was just insecure about my own kind of like, grades or
Mhm.
anything like that. So, so I've been the asshole in that situation before, and it's not. I didn't realize it until much later on.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah.
like, I relate. It's in a weird way. I relate to your dropped friend in that way, and I hope that I did not
Mhm.
have that negative effect on people, and I hope to never have that negative effect on people before or again. So.
In I hope that she lives her best life. And this is in pure honesty too. Like I hope she's resolved that, and I
I
hope
hope she
she
gets
like
hit
lives
by a
well.
bus and that she has the best life being hit by a bus.
No,
Hope
no,
she
no,
gets
no.
hit by the best bus.
I hope that she no, no, no. Like instead of a bus, it has to be a limousine. No, but really, really,
Yeah, no,
Out of the
I
bus
you
no ill
know,
will.
solutions.
mhm.
No ill will.
Yeah, no ill will to this person because like you can tell that I'm still very biased. You shouldn't really believe me because this is only from one side of it.
That would be a good idea for a
But
podcast. Surprise two people, one like two friends that dropped each other or whatever, and they have to work their shit out, and they have to decide at the end if they're going to be friends again or not.
I'm gonna be real. If you did this to me, I would never come back to this podcast.
Yeah, I don't know if we're qualified to do
No,
that.
that is that's yeah, I wouldn't want to do it either. I was kind of kidding, but if somebody out there wants to do it, they will set you up.
Oh hell no!
Episode 6.
Too
Oh
soon.
god.
Too
All right.
soon.
So, Alan, why don't you have like if any extra thoughts on your side? Because I value what you have to say as a human.
Well, we never came up with an out-of-the-box solution yet.
Um,
But I think Chloe mentioned something kind of before that's a little out of the box. Maybe look at your relationship with your friend. Like, ignore the toxicity. Like, don't ignore, but like, look at your friend and like reevaluate like why you were friends with them in the first place. Like, look at all the other stuff, like the good parts
mhm.
that you had with them, and I guess like decide if you want to save it. And then if you do want to save your friendship, be more honest with them, like we've been saying, like actually address what is like bothering you, you know,
Yeah, I
which
think
can be
to add
hard.
to I think to add to that is just separate yourself from the situation first, and then
Yeah,
secondly, it feels like of course because um, all of us went into STEM, like going
Yeah.
back. Just try to really, if you can, quantify the situation and then think about it in a qualitative fashion. Like put a thing down. Like this could work for relationships as well in a sense. Have a list. Put all the positives on one side and the negatives on the other, and then sort them out in your head and think about like other times in your life where this came up and that came up and how prevalent did this feature come up, and then maybe afterwards try and not necessarily like predict but like I guess hypothesize what are the consequences of ending this relationship, who are going to be affected, how will your life be at the end of this friendship, like will you be able to, will this affect anything like major, and you shouldn't just a like you shouldn't keep this friendship in a sense where it depends on everyone else. No, like major to you, like
Yeah.
do you really need this, is it worth like all these comments, and inevitably the final thing is to strategize how you could, if you decide to keep this friend or like drop them, ultimately like well no, this is for if you decide to keep your friend, ultimately decide whether or not you like how to stop the source of the problem, which is really hard.
yeah.
You would have to go back like all of that history you have with each other and see where you think it started, and then you have to have a conversation with them. Like that 4 steps to solving this problem is probably that,
Yeah.
and then
All
ultimately.
right. Wait.
Yeah.
Sorry. You had one more thing to
Mhm.
say. What were you gonna say?
No, I said ultimately the outcome's really up to you because
Mhm.
this is tricky.
So,
as
all right, then
always.
what are the 4 steps? So, briefly, what are the 4 steps then?
Hmm.
Because you said them, but
Briefly,
I didn't separate them into 4 steps in my head. So
oh,
yeah,
okay, that's
all right,
fair.
what are they?
Um, quantify the situation,
Okay.
like yeah, drawing out the lines. Think about the consequences
Okay.
of if the friend would be dropped. 3, try to figure out where the problem, like the core problem, started
Mhm.
actually, and then 4 is the actual confrontation.
Okay.
You put all of them together.
I have one
Yeah.
note about step 2, which was, or
Uh-huh.
maybe it was step
Uh-huh.
1, where you're like basically doing the pros and cons. Uh,
Yeah.
the I don't know why, but personally, that pros and cons types thing, sometimes it's a really good tool where you're like, you just see the list and you're like, oh yeah, like this is an easy
Mm-hmm.
decision once it's written out in kind of bullet form. But some of the decisions, some of the heavy decisions, not heavy, but whatever, life decisions I've had to make about like what I wanted to do in college or career wise or whatever, I found it much more helpful to actually kind of write it out in paragraph form because
Oh
as
yeah.
I'm writing, I realize like it forces you to be a little bit more logical and not skip things. Where
Mm-hmm.
you can miss a bullet point, or you could like write a bullet point and be like, oh well, yeah, that comes with a bunch of extra details. But when you're actually writing it out, typing, writing, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
it forces me to like actually like include all the details, which will normally expose something I didn't consciously think of.
Yeah, so I definitely, write to your leisure. Honestly, if you can't write that much, maybe it's a sign you shouldn't be
Yeah.
in this friendship. Who
Mm.
knows?
Keep
Um,
is our solution to keep a journal?
keeping a journal is a good thing. No, imagine just keeping a journal to each of the people that you know. It's just like,
Ooh, that'd be a
You
they
lot.
guys don't
gave
do that?
me a blue shirt, and they know I don't like blue. Like it's like no, don't do. Imagine.
I wouldn't say keep a journal, but I
But
would say write almost like a pros and cons type thing. Just write it out more, like
yeah,
literally rather than
just
just
like
bullet points.
the only like this is always like a common first step to whatever problem I come like just come about because
Mhm.
it's like if I really am so jumbled that I don't know where to ground myself, the first step is just always to ground yourself, and I think that's just a way. You do not have to keep an active journal on this person,
We recommend it though.
but
Keep notes, spy on them, and see what they're doing in their time.
Yeah,
this
make
is how
notes
we're
in your
gonna
dream
get
journal that you're already keeping.
Dear Diary. James wronged me today.
Yeah.
And this is how many times. No, you please
Which is
don't keep
Yeah.
strangely
track on
less than
your.
average. Um. Uh. So yeah. The one. So it sounds like though another thing. So yeah. So after like thoroughly assessing due to Chloe's 4 step plan, how if you should keep the person in your life, I would say though, do you guys have any tips or tricks or whatever, like based on personal experience or otherwise, about how to actually successfully confront somebody?
No.
um,
Okay.
I'm a
you
very
you
non-confrontational person,
Okay.
which is why I have
as
these issues.
Ah, okay.
as an almost too confrontational person. On the other end of the spectrum, I've hit them up anytime. 2
Really?
a.m. Listen, bitch, and or like even like okay, so consciously like as I've grown older, slightly wiser. I know when to hit people up in terms of when they're free. Sometimes I ask, hey, when are you free? I would just like to kind of like chat if the mood is nicer. But most of the time, if you're dropping a friend, the mood's not gonna be too nice. Try to do it in person,
So wait,
so
so
you
I
can
know,
really,
Chloe, as long as
yeah,
you're not texting me saying, "Listen, bitch, we need to talk," then I know we're on good terms.
yeah, yeah,
Cool.
pretty
Okay.
much.
See, this is why Chloe and I
uh,
can be friends because, like, I
it's
know
very
if there's
easy.
any problem, Chloe will definitely let me know.
And it's like like you really shouldn't do it at the height of your emotions. Like
Yeah, I
like
completely agree with that.
let's let's say it's 3 a.m. and you're really feeling this person's
I was
kind
having
of
an
dick,
argument in
right?
my head yesterday, last night, like lying down in bed,
Mm-hmm.
trying to go to bed, and I was just like, "Oh, this fucking motherfucker," like I was like so mad at one of my friends for something, um, and
Never do it then.
yeah, exactly. Like I could
Yeah.
have tried to call him. I mean, he was probably asleep, but whatever. and just like had an argument, but then that wouldn't have solved any issues other than maybe just venting a little bit. But then like it would just make more problems. So,
let's assume that you did all of these steps and you really like, still feel angry if not angry. You should wait maybe 12 hours sleep. I think sleeping, just finding any way to cool down, maybe go for a run, just anything to get like a lot of the raw and like initial emotions out. You'll get to like the core of how you really feel, and then approach that person. That's really the first thing. Like I can't base on it during times, like maybe don't text them while they're at work, maybe don't text them if they're at a family gathering, like if you know their schedule well enough. Sometimes you don't, but just be considerate on both ends is like the true answer. Don't just go up to them at 2 a.m. and say, listen bitch, it's time to talk. But yeah, in terms of that, the only really real guard is just to be conscious of their schedule and your schedule, and to do it with a relatively clear head.
Yeah, I definitely 100% agree. And then, Alan, sorry, do you have anything to say?
Nope.
Okay.
That's a pretty good
So here's then my last question
resolution
towards you guys, because this is like legitimately would help me out and things. Because I know I said earlier, Malcolm Gladwell said, marriages with people that argue more, but about like less big things, smaller things, not smaller things, less big things. They tend to have a healthier relationship. So I think that's probably one of my key issues is I wait too long, because I will I like at the time somebody does won't bother me, but then like the next day I'll be like, oh, you know what, that was kind of a mean thing for them to say. You know what I mean? Like, how do they really feel about me or about what I do or whatever, And then like a week goes by and I'm like, basically whenever I think of that person, I'm thinking like they did that thing that annoyed me or wronged me or whatever. And then it's like a month later I'll finally talk to them about it, and since then, basically exactly what Chloe said, a month of shit has happened, so now it's like, either good shit or bad shit or whatever, so now it's just like, all the details are muddied and now viewed through a different lens. But if in the moment, let's say maybe just the next day, I just actually talked to the person and was like, hey, I didn't appreciate what you said or what you did, like, can you please not do that again in the future, or do you want to talk about it? And that would probably be weird. This is I don't know if you guys agree with this or not, but that would probably be weird, but that would probably lead to the situation being ended right there instead of a month of me being angry about it. And I would have my answer right then and there, with less details being confused after a month of nothing happening or whatever. So, but I don't.
Definitely better to be upfront about it.
That's
like right in the moment.
That's so hard, though. That's so hard. I can't.
It's hard, but like, it's what you
gotta
need
do
to
it.
do.
All right, I'm gonna do it.
It's necessary.
Alan, we have a problem.
Yeah.
This is
you have to that's a practice.
No.
I mean, I do that too, though.
What?
Like waiting a while. But the difference is I will never bring it up. I will always just be mad.
See, yeah, maybe that's also another problem I've thought of. It's like, is there a point where it's been too long and you should probably just let it go? If it hasn't happened again, you know what I mean? Is there a point where you should probably just let it go?
Definitely. Well, Alan, I want to see how you would think this situation out, and that.
About letting it go?
Yeah, I'm curious too, because you have an active problem technically, in a sense.
Yeah.
Because is this something you'd consider doing? Like, would you let this person go?
I mean, wait, sorry. Are you talking about still dropping the friend, or about like letting go of something that they did, like James was just saying?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's what I meant. Like letting go of that, like the thing they did. Like, let's say for example, just
yeah, so if it was just a one-time thing, maybe it's okay to forget about it. Because, like, I'm thinking of this as, like, if they did that thing and then they continued doing shitty things and you never talked about it, like, I don't think that's worth just forgetting about, because that's, like, a serious issue. But, like, if it was just, like, let's say it's, like, a friend that you don't want, like a friend we're not considering dropping or anything, like it's not a toxic person, but they said something that really hurt you, like if that was a really just one time thing, like I wouldn't hold
Yeah.
that against them because maybe it was just like they weren't thinking about what they were saying, and if really nothing else happened in that time, then
Mm-hmm.
you know maybe it's not worth bringing up because like maybe they forgot about it too just because it was so insignificant. I don't
Right.
think a one-time event like that is enough to ruin like a whole friendship.
I agree.
And yeah, no, I kind of agree that it's not worth ruining the friendship over like something like that. I would definitely talk to them right away. Like sometimes I have a hard time because it's like, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm overreacting. Um, and then I like talk it over to them. And sometimes, depending on how they react is a pretty good indicator of whether or not they like care about you or whether or not like it's like good to keep them. Sometimes you'll find friends that are more understanding. It's like, yeah, it's all right. I'm sorry that I like. Let's say you bring up something and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry that this happened. They don't need to necessarily apologize, or they're just like, I'll make sure this won't happen in the future, and that's like reasonably good. But if this person's just like, I think you're overreacting. I didn't do anything. If they're very defensive of
Yeah,
themselves
that's
and very
I get that a
and
lot.
very.
I feel
Mhm.
like one of my close friends. I've had like a few arguments with him before, and it's just like
Mhm.
I'll be like, yeah, you did this. It was really annoying. Like, please don't do that again. He's like, oh, you're overreacting, bro. And I'm like, that, yeah. So like that's a very frustrating answer because it's like I'm trying. It's hard enough to bring it up in the first place, and then somebody's like, oh well, you're just overreacting, or you're like, like you gotta like take it easy. It's like they're not
Mhm.
acknowledging that they could at least have been the asshole in the situation,
Hmm.
you know.
Mhm.
So that I don't know how to solve. That sounds like it's the beginning of potentially a toxic friendship.
Yeah. At that
Yeah.
point, you just start testing the waters. Really, really see. Maybe it was just a misstep on them. Because the thing is, people, even though they get defensive, it might have been, once again, more reasons. It could have been a touch nerve. Like, it could have been something, like, really important to them. It might have just been that particular topic. But if you start seeing a pattern
Yeah.
over a larger range of things, that's when you know maybe this is a potentially toxic friendship.
One thing I do want to talk about, and we got to end it soon. We've been going for like almost an hour. We said this was
Hmm.
Yeah.
gonna be half hour,
Half an hour.
so we have a lot to say about this.
Okay.
Wait,
Instead of setting like a goal, we should set a minimum and a maximum for
yeah, probably.
for next time.
That's a good idea. Um, so the quick thing I just wanted to address though is something I personally have had, luckily haven't had to deal with much, but sometimes I've been in like people I know have been they know this a friend is toxic and they do want to drop them, but they don't have too many other friends. So
Oh.
so it's just like, well, like, are you kind
It's
of hanging out
hard.
because you don't want to be alone? And I know people that have been in relationships, like romantic relationships with a person, and they're like, well, I don't like I don't want to be alone. You know what I mean? And so they don't get out of the relationship because they're more afraid of being alone than being in this bad relationship. And the same happens with friends where, um, maybe you only have like a core group of two or three friends, and one of them's being really shitty. You know what I mean? And if you cut ties with that friend, have a falling out with that friend, drop that friend, whatever, that's undoubtedly going to have an effect on the other two. And so it's like if you don't have another friend group, and even if you do have another friend group, it's like it might not be your best friend group. So I think that's
Mhm.
where things can get really messy, and I've seen that happen before with some people I know, where it's just like they'll stay in a friendship that isn't healthy. Not, I wouldn't say I haven't seen anything that was too bad, but just definitely not healthy. Like they're not being supportive. They're always kind of being like putting the other person down. Uh, but
Mhm.
because they don't, they want to have some type of social life, you know. And generally that happens when people are out of school by that point. So and then now it's harder to make friends, because you're gonna make friends with people you work with. That means you have to like you're starting from
Mhm.
scratch at like in your
Yeah.
freaking 20s or 30s or something, and that sucks.
It's more common than a lot of people think it
Yeah,
is.
I think so as well.
Either fortunately or unfortunately. But I do have to say this, just because I've seen it happen before, just because it's never led to anything good. If that relationship is toxic, even if it's your only relationship, you have to end it because if you continue, the results will be far worse than something that you can ever solve.
Oh my god, that sounds like a bad
that was
omen.
very ominous.
I've seen, yeah, it sounds very ominous.
you're absolutely
I've seen this
right.
happen recently. It is going to be something so irreparable that you're going to have to end this anyway. Either you really try to repair it with them and see, you know, like maybe it was a mishap, maybe it's something deeper, maybe it's something that you and that other person can work out over time, and maybe you're willing to solve this. But really, you have to see whether or not it's worth it for you. Like, why is this person so worth it to you to want to solve this problem with them, possibly, or are you so lonely that this is something that you absolutely you absolutely need companionship. Maybe at the same token, you need to start working on yourself, and you really shouldn't be focusing on this relationship. Maybe you should, like, you know, take a step back, and it'll be good for you that you're alone. It's
Yeah.
a lot of things.
That's actually, there's a great video I watched. If I can find it, I'll link it in the description of the video. Where the guy is basically saying you cannot find your. He was talking about romantic relationships. He's like, you cannot find your, like, you know, a really healthy, good relationship until you accept the possibility that you might be alone. Because it's like if you're not willing to accept the possibility that you will be alone, or you like there's a possibility that you can be alone, then that means you'll just accept any relationship so that you won't be alone. Right?
Yeah.
So, and I think the same is true with friendships, and it's as shitty as it feels and sounds, and as much as a loser as you might feel, it's like, I'm sure we've all been like that low at certain points, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would rather be lonely than, you know, have people I'm surrounded with and still feel lonely, right? I'd rather be physically lonely than, like, mentally lonely, or both. I don't know.
I think
That's a bad way of putting it, but yeah, that's.
I think this is a
You
topic
interpret your
that
own
we
meaning.
should actually. I think you should. This is a topic that we should actually discuss more
Yeah,
deeply
I'd be fine
in
with
another
that.
episode, possibly.
But it is time to
Because
close out this episode, Chloe. So, for closing thoughts.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts?
Well, I didn't want to cut you off. You can finish what you had to
ha-
say, so I apologize.
Yeah. Oh no, I was about to say we should just talk about this another time because it's gonna take forever.
Yeah, exactly.
To discuss. Yeah.
Wait, what'd you say? Yeah, I think that's what it was.
I originally thought you were talking about, like, Leffy, because I remember you said you watched her before, and she had a How to Be
Leafy?
Alone video.
No,
Leafy, yeah.
not Leafy.
Leffy.
Leffy.
Not Leafy,
Yeah,
Leffy, yeah. L-E-F-I-E.
Yeah, she's cool. I haven't watched her videos in a while, though.
I saw that, and I really wanted to click on it, especially because a lot of people are suffering it now during isolation.
absolutely.
I'm sure this is a very topical problem, but we could save that for another time. Any closing thoughts? In terms of anything, be truthful in your intentions, and do not tunnel vision yourself into just thinking about you when you interact with other people. Be conscious of what other people do to you as well. Just be like, you know, like, don't just, like, assume things are going a certain way. Sometimes you might need to check on them. That's hard to do with a really busy life. Maybe you have a lot of people in your life, but in terms of, like, immediate interactions, you always have to check. Because you could be the dropped friend, or one friend might be becoming too toxic, and it's something that could have been preventable. I still mourn that friendship, in a sense. I regret, like, that it didn't go the way I wanted to, or the way she wanted to.
This was from Adam Savage's book, Every Tool is a Hammer, which is a great book. I'd recommend it to anybody. I listened to the audiobook. It was narrated by Adam Savage. He's the guy from Mythbusters.
Yeah.
In this book, he shares a story about how he was paid. Like, he had dropped out of college by this point, but he was paid by one of his friends to make a movie set for their senior art project or whatever. So he did it, and he basically messed up really bad. A lot of things went wrong, and he spent the budget, and, like, everything was messed up in the end. And so he was like, that it really sucked because he was trying so hard and it came out bad, and he was well intentioned, but he also at the time didn't have the tools, like, you know, to, like, emotionally and with his friendship to be honest and say I failed. Like, he was still trying to fix it, and it was just making it worse type thing. And so that whole relationship with that friend was ruined. And he said failure really hurts. Like, real failure is like when you lose a friend, or real failure is like when something really irreparably bad happens. But it's also, that's the real type of failure that will be a teacher. He's like, I've never made a mistake that bad again because I failed that bad. So I think the same could be true in general with friendships, where it's just like, if a friendship is that bad, it's probably more of a learning experience that you'll never get involved with in a bad friendship like that again. Hopefully, you know what I mean, and be a better person for it. So like, for example, Chloe, you're saying like you still kind of mourn that friendship, and that's the type of failure sense, like that deep in your heart, you're like, it hurts, like, you know, I wish it worked out for whatever reason. But you're probably, if I had to guess, you know, like better off that you're a better person having gone through that failure. And I'm using the word failure, but you know what I mean, like going through that falling out, or that ending of that friendship. You know, you're probably like, you know, a more, I don't know, I guess more resourceful person, probably more conscious of your friendships and things like that. You know, like, so there's like these weird positives that come off of having to end these bad relationships.
I think I want to give that a read, definitely.
Yeah, I'll post it in the description as well. So we're gonna post
this is really
school life video. I'll post that thing, and anything else you guys want to post, I can put it in the description. And now we're gonna do our famous, everybody knows it, our famous outro, the one we do every time, right? Chloe, why don't you take it away?
I was about to say, I don't remember the outro. I don't want to. Thank you guys so much for watching us really talk about the situation. I'm sure during times of isolation, stuff like this has probably popped up. And it's even harder because you don't want to really lose people, as James mentioned. But hope anything we say...
Yeah, I think we'll try and revisit this in the near future. We apparently have a lot to say about it.
Yeah. It's a lengthy topic, and it's especially important to keep in touch with people. But on that note, I hope everyone else is safe. Let us know what type of videos you'd be interested in, and once again, thank you for giving us a listen.
All right, please support us on Patreon and all other...
OnlyFans.
OnlyFans.
James and Alan have an OnlyFans.
Yeah,
you guys know? Wait, so we just have two OnlyFans accounts, or just James?
Yeah.